This episode is brought to you by Forethought. Most companies build their customer experience in pieces. Sales in one system, support in another, and onboarding somewhere else. Forethought brings it all together. Forethought is an AI system made up of advanced agents that handle sales, onboarding, support, and retention. Each team manages its own agents. The customer sees one unified experience. Forethought powers over 1 billion interactions every month for brands like Scale AI, Cohere, Airtable, and Upwork. Learn more at forethought.ai.
Hey, it's Eric Newcomer. Welcome to the Cerebral Valley Podcast, our occasional detour from the Newcomer Podcast. With me are now three-time hosts, Max Child and James Wilsterman, the co-founders of Volley and the co-hosts of the Cerebral Valley AI Summit. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Hey, Eric. Happy to be back. Excited about the conference coming up in London.
Yeah, so we, always sort of jump into the Cerebral Valley podcast ahead of our Cerebral Valley AI Summit. So we've got one June 25th in London. People are like, oh, isn't it hard to do an international conference? And like everything in startups, it's easiest to do hard things when you underestimate how difficult it is until you're like, oh yeah, we're just doing it. Someone is figuring out taxes. We have an event team there.
I saw we have the ticket prices in pounds on the website. So I think
exactly.
That seemed like someone was on top of that.
So a couple fun things for this episode. For the longtime listeners, at the end of the podcast, we will return to the startup draft, perhaps my favorite part of the show. We have over time accumulated startups in our imaginary portfolio and get to score keep how we're doing. Working backwards, before that, we're going to dig into some of our predictions from the last series. This is sort of a mid-year snapshot, right, guys, in terms of the predictions that we made?
Yeah, we made about 10 predictions last year in November with the idea that they would come to fruition within a year. So this is the mid-year check-in. No official scorekeeping needed, but we will obviously be competitive on our mid-year check-ins as well.
In the latter half of the show, we'll be doing our games. But I just wanted to start off, we've been doing this. We launched the first Cerebral Valley in March 2023. Chat GPT had just come out and everyone was getting their heads around models. Max and James, if you want to sort of walk me through, how do you think of sort of the thematic evolution of AI in that period? And where are we now as we're programming for Cerebral Valley London?
Last time we chatted, it was the end of last year, which feels like a long time ago in the AI world, but we were all having this discussion of if we were hitting a scaling wall and if the models would stop getting better. And I would say it feels like every 2 weeks since then, something amazing has happened in AI.
I know, it's proved trivial.
Has been a great leap forward. I actually think the theme of hitting the scaling wall aged really poorly, which we somewhat predicted at the time, but maybe we didn't know how wrong we were. I mean, just some highlights. We had, GPT-01, the sort of first thinking model. We had O3, which has brought thinking models into the tool world. We've had Gemini really take great leaps forward and kind of become a state-of-the-art model system. We just had Claude 4 3 weeks ago, which a lot of people consider the greatest model built so far, maybe the best coding model ever made. We've had incredible leaps in image generation from Midjourney, Gemini, Flux, a bunch of other folks. And then, of course, we're going to get into this episode too. Video generation has also been unbelievable. VO3 in particular, which is Google's new video model, I think is the first sort of truly realistic seeming video generation model, in my opinion, and kind of a great leap forward there.
Alexander Wang at our conference in November was probably the most prominent person arguing for a scaling wall or a potential issue. I mean, he was talking his own book. He's in the post-training business. I do think there's an argument that a lot of the progress, some of the progress we've seen has been about post-training. The models are a certain level of smart, but then they sort of talk to each other. They're corrected in certain ways, and that's where they get more intelligence. That seems to be the improvement we're seeing with O3 and the chain of thought models.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alexander Wang, I give him a lot of credit for what he was saying at our conference in November, because he was arguing that maybe we would see a scaling wall to some degree in pre-training, but we wouldn't see performance leveling at all. And I think that's exactly what's happened. And to your point, like a lot of the gains from thinking models have come from new post-training techniques, reinforcement learning, and a whole new scaling paradigm, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, the models have gotten really, really effing good. And
right.
whether it's pre-training or post-training,
they got good.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the vibe was a little more like, oh, maybe this is the end of AI progress, not just like pre-training is over. And, and to your point, there was a distinction drawn by some of the people at the conference, but I think there was maybe a more negative tenor going forward from a lot of folks on stage. And instead, I think it's been maybe the craziest 6 months in the history of AI. I don't know. It's felt like that to me.
The interesting thing is, I guess, like in January, we had that DeepSeek moment, right? We haven't talked about that.
God, I forgot about DeepSeek too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So to some degree, that was maybe echoing some of these scaling wall concerns, because if you can get such high performance out of, open source models that are effectively competing with the frontier US companies, like maybe there is an argument there. But then I guess, that's kind of died down a bit as we've seen both Anthropic and OpenAI come out with superior models to some degree.
What models are you guys using?
Claude 4, Gemini 2.5 for coding, and then for my own personal sort of research and note taking and stuff, probably O3.
That's the same for me. I've been using a lot of deep research through ChatGPT. I think that's my favorite product maybe of the last few months.
I don't have time. I use O3 a lot. I use deep research some. I don't want to blow anyone up here, but I had a deep research write a whole like political consulting memo for somebody I was trying to get to run for office. It's like, it's amazing. I mean, there is a world where I would have gone and paid a consultant to be like, draw out for me like when races will be available and when they could run. And it's like, you just like, in the morning you're having a manic fit and you're like, let's see what ChatGPT can do. It's insane.
It's crazy. This is a very nerdy, lame use case, but I like to buy cheap wine that is still good. And there was a secret wine from a local provider. And they said it's this anonymous secret wine that we're selling for 1/5 of market price. But, if you bought it at market price, it would be a $250, $300 wine. And they were like, it comes from these amazing vineyards on the west side of Napa and the foothills, blah, 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 blah. And I just pasted the description into deep research and I was like, figure out what the secret wine is.
Wow.
And 20 minutes later it comes back and it's like, oh, obviously this is like this BV Latour 2022 cab or whatever. And I was like, what?
I've been super impressed with ChatGPT multimodal for shopping. The three of us are all going to the same wedding in France in a month or so. And I don't know if you guys have looked at the required attire, but half of it's in French.
Oh my God, my wife is very concerned.
Yeah, so a hot tip is paste that whole thing into ChatGPT, ask it to shop for you. It'll be great. My wife and I
this is a good idea.
Awesome. I mean, it's not perfect. I won't lie. Like maybe 1 out of 10 suggestions are like completely off base, but the shopping integration, it's kind of showing where things are headed. Like,
what do you mean integration?
Well, because it's actually like searching the web, doing an agentic workflow of looking for these items, and then it's pulling that information back into ChatGPT inline in the chat. There's links that link out, right? Eventually, I'm sure you'll be able to just like add that to your cart within ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. It's a full shopping experience. It's not just researching.
Right. Yeah, interesting.
He used the word agentic. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a lot, over the next couple episodes in terms of how AI can get put to use. The topic I really wanted to get into this week before reviewing our games and our scorekeeping is agents. Like, I feel like agents have been at once sort of the buzziest thing in the backdrop of a couple events, but never quite here. And so I guess the first direct question I want to ask is deep research an agent? Is O3 an agent? Like what is an agent these days if it's just delivering you a report?
I buy the agent definition that an agent is, an AI tool that can actually do stuff for you, right? That can go through some sort of series of steps involving actions. And, quote unquote, tool use is sort of one of the popular phrases these days of, using different tools. Currently, the only tools these agents can use really are essentially like web search and, maybe pulling shopping links and showing pictures to James's discussion. But I still fundamentally think like there is a big difference between, ChatGPT of 6 to 12 months ago where,
right.
You ask it a question, it gives you an answer. Essentially, it's, it's a text in, text out engine, right? You put text in one side, it gives you text out the other side, but it doesn't go do stuff
now
as
it's
part of that
around
kind
the
of
web. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Right. Even the deep research that we were talking about. I mean, I used to be a management consultant for two years, 2 horrible years. And it can do much better versions of what I did as a management consultant. In a matter of minutes, it could do 5 days of world-class management consultant level research on a topic. Right. And I guess if you don't think that's agentic, I think you're a little crazy.
Really
like the bar is too high, right?
It's clearly running around. I've seen some people use like time. It's like if it takes time,
how
it's
long
an
it
agent.
takes.
If it's all going and doing things and interacting with the world and coming back, I want to throw down a gauntlet. To me, and this could come soon, we'll be in the world of agents once people are letting them run wild with their own credit cards. Once agents are spending money without a human check-in, that's when we've got sort of real agents. What do you think about that?
So does it not count in your mind if like my agent finds me a dope pair of shoes and, texts me, hey, can I buy this? And I'm like, yeah, go for it.
No, it needs to transact.
It needs to do it.
It needs to do it without you. Oh, truly hands
That's
off.
when it'll be like,
this
this is a thing. That's an agent. I mean, I understand like, you book flights and an agent would have like asked you before.
I don't agree with that definition. I feel like if it does a restaurant reservation, maybe no money changes hands. That's still an agent. I mean, I just think this is
it's definitely an agent. I'm just saying that's like a great employee solves the problem, right? It's not like, oh, they come back to you and want all this feedback. It's like, do the thing, like pull the trigger. Like once we can trust it to do that, I'm just saying that will be a landmark moment that I don't think is so far away. Or do you think that is far away?
No, I honestly think that if you had the capability to do that already in ChatGPT, like James did his clothing research, probably some people would be like, yeah, fine, go do it. Like, don't buy too many things without asking me. But like, I think people would already be down. I honestly think the company's reluctance is probably just mostly like they don't want it to go off the rails and spend, thousands of dollars of people's money or whatever. But it's possible already, in my opinion.
I don't know if it would work yet. Like, and I think a lot of this ties into context, how much ChatGPT knows about me. I mean, it's obviously, starting to build that memory, but I don't think it knows enough without me prompting it or, having very targeted list of shopping ideas for this wedding to go just start buying me stuff. That'd be super interesting once we get there, but I don't think it's ready for that yet.
Max just was sort of getting at this. I mean, stop limits, I think, are key, right? Yeah. I mean, there's a degree to which algos, I was talking to a former banker about this the other day, like, it's not crazy that we would let a machine, a computer make payment decisions on its own. Traders do it all the time. You just create some limits and checks and hopefully have people hovering. But like the algorithms have to move before a person could react. And so that's happening there. And so you can see with LLMs, it's like, okay, you build up a trust up to the, $500 limit and you're like, you can.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I mean, how many chargebacks are chargebacks going to go up with everybody releasing power to agents? And you're like, oh man, we need to do more refunds when the agents do something crazy.
I mean, I think that kind of gets into some of this like quote unquote agentic web discussion, which is like, can we redesign the web in a way that enables more of this behavior? Because I do actually think if you're a clothing retailer, there probably is some kind of business model in which you let people buy way too many clothes and then they send most of them back or they cancel most of them before they ship or whatever, right? Like, which obviously is along the lines of like a Stitch Fix or Trunk Club or some of these other companies, which, weren't wildly successful because I think the return fees are pretty punitive or, and you end up with a lot of fraud and, damaged clothes and stuff like that. But I do think there's an interesting question of like, could you build some sort of consumer commerce website where people's agents can like buy way too much stuff, like basically, and then cancel it or return it or limit it or in some way? Because people buying too much stuff by accident is probably good if you're selling things, like even if you have to find a way to let them cancel it or return it.
My first reaction to what you were saying is, oh, this is like a workaround to allow agents to spend when we're really going to unwind it. But it makes the default spending versus not. It's like, oh, the trigger
which
has
is
been
good,
pulled,
which is
very
really good
important
if you're selling stuff. Yeah.
James, what's an agent use case you're most excited about?
I can't ignore coding. We haven't talked about coding, which I think is like the most actually valuable,
The real one. That's why we don't want to talk about it. It's boring. It's happening.
I know.
That's
Like
the one that
everyone
actually
knows,
works. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean,
We're over
it's
it. AI podcasts are only about the future, you know?
I think, well, I just think that there's a lot to unpack about the future of coding. I mean, I am a CTO. I code when I can, and this agentic world has dramatically changed what I can do in terms of prototyping and participating in the coding at Volley and learning faster, right? I mean, you just learn so much faster about different technologies and tech stacks. And yeah, I think it's like, if you're not an engineer, you maybe understand this a little bit, or you've played around with things that are a little bit more no code, like lovable.
Or Figma.
Yeah, or Figma, right? I mean,
well, I think both Lovable and Figma are speaking our event, and they are now competitors in the no code world.
Yeah.
Both non-coders and coders, if you've dabbled with any of this, you are, seeing the future of like what could happen to all types of computer work, white collar work, if you want to call it, but it's happening first in the engineering space. And it's pretty remarkable.
I think Nat Friedman had a really good analogy that I can't get out of my head about agentic coding. And he talks about the idea that you have this room full of interns who are all like junior engineers, basically, right? And you assign each of them a task, and they go off and try to do it. And then when they get stuck, they raise their hand and they say, "Hey, I need help here. Come help me. I'm stuck with this bug or this issue. The app's not working, whatever." And he podcasted, I think, about 6 months ago, and he was like, right now, basically, these interns raise their hands like every 5 minutes in like human time. Like, so they do like 5 minutes of work and they raise their hand, and you got to go help them. And then they raise their hand 5 minutes later, and over and over and over again. And he's like, so you can't really have that many of these, imaginary interns going, because you got to just be running around fixing their problems all the time. Maybe only one really, like, because you're just constantly having to give them feedback. I do think like the frontier for like how much quote unquote human work these agentic coding tools can do now without you having to run over and help them when they raise their hand is like probably somewhere in the like 15 to 30 minute range now, where like, they obviously come back to you very quickly. Like they iterate through their work very fast because they can type at a superhuman speed, right? They can put out hundreds of lines of code. But the sort of amount of human level work, I would say in my testing that they get stuck is probably like, somewhere in that 15 to 30 minute range.
I'm confused. Like, are you saying 15 to 30 minutes of like what it would take for a human intern?
What it would take like a good human engineer, like
got it.
Mid to senior software engineer, just hammering away at code, right?
Yeah.
Like how much code do you get out between them getting stuck, right?
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I would say, maybe half an hour of like human work.
But
right?
you get it in 3 minutes or 2 minutes.
You get it in a minute, or 30 seconds usually, which is mind boggling. But like the dream is you get 4 hours of human work or 8 hours of human work, or eventually, weeks, or it just starts fixing itself and you never go in there, right?
I mean, I spent a fair bit of time vibe coding a month or so ago. I do think there are some self-driving car aspects, in the sense that like the last 5% or 10% of a problem is very important. And like, it's like, ooh, it looks close. But it's like, sure, it's really good when I'm like copying the Substack design, dropping it to Lovable, and like, oh, rebuild that. But like at some point, I feel like you've just been working long enough and you have some minor tweak you want to make, and it just starts getting stuck and has no idea. I mean, partially that's why I'm trying to do no code and no code knowledge, but I do think these programs are really good at being enticing in the beginning, and then they sort of get overwhelmed as the project starts to expand.
Maybe this project that you were doing, you won't be able to ship because of that last 5 mile problem or whatever. The fact that you even started it is kind of amazing that you did that. Like, you wouldn't have been able to even start the project 3 months ago or 6 months ago or something.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. Like, where that heads is, I think eventually you get to the point where it's a finished product, and then there's just like way more coding projects happening in the world. Right. And then, I think within companies that already have an engineering workforce, like it actually can get across that last mile.
I think another important theme that always comes up is like, if we froze this moment in time, how much value is there that people are still understanding versus depending on continued progress in the models that's revolutionary? Where are you guys on how much harvesting could be done with what already exists versus what we're waiting on?
I would say a lot,
Yeah,
a lot of unharvested progress. Like, I can't even think like trillions. I don't know. I haven't decided if tens of trillions, but let's say trillions
What's
of
the
unharvested
measure?
value.
Oh, like dollars.
GDP value of just harvesting the stuff that we've done so far.
But it's amazing. You still see people who are like skeptical. I mean, I don't know. I just don't want to be, deluding myself here.
Yeah. I mean, I think like fundamentally, we've all had the experience, right, where something that used to take 8 hours now takes less than a minute, right? I mean, like, we've all had that experience, right? And so if you just do the math on that, you say, okay, I took something that used to be a 500-minute problem, and now it's a 1-minute problem. Unless you believe that thing had no value whatsoever, how could you not see a 500x in knowledge work in front of you and say, hey, maybe we haven't harvested all the value on this 500x improvement, though, this thing I just did. How could you not believe that that's going to have insane ramifications throughout our world and insane amounts of value that eventually can be created, So I don't know. I just look at that, 2 orders of magnitude differential we're already seeing on labor and think it's got to be huge.
Here's a question for you guys. Like, I have a friend who's in PE and he, he's not really in the tech world that much, but he, tried ChatGPT, didn't really, find it super valuable. He had never tried O3. And I just showed him what was possible. And he kind of changed his whole opinion of what types of companies he should buy in the future.
Wow. Well, I do think that's a real danger, that there are things that I'm changing about my life and medical decisions and lots of stuff off O3 because it's so persuasive that we'll never really be able to back out the psychological. It's like, is it having an effect? It's like, yeah, it's deeply affecting big decisions in my life. Just because it's like the thought partner, it's there. Just like, if you were to have the friend that's there while you're soundboarding an idea, like that's going to be dramatic. And I think just the fact that it's in the loop.
Wouldn't you say overall that it's improved?
It's giving
your
good advice.
decision-making?
That's why I keep it in the loop. Yeah.
Right.
I think
Exactly. It's not like,
but it will be hard to know if it hallucinated. I don't know. It's like, is it going to, hopefully in a couple of years, it'll chase after me and the ChatGPT will be, I told you a couple of key things that I think you took to heart. And now that I'm a little smarter, I'm going to go back on that. We'll see.
Having lived through the iPhone experience of having the first iPhone in 2007 and having to spend the next 4 years explaining to my friends why they had to get an iPhone and why they should probably consider getting an iPhone. I mean, James, you had a BlackBerry until what, 2011 or something like that? Like 2010, 2011?
He mocks you, James.
I'm sorry. I've got one person.
I was a laggard too. I had a BlackBerry for a long time.
Yeah. And people would be like, well, Max, why do I need an iPhone? What do you do with an iPhone? And I'm like, well, you can like browse the internet. And they're like, well, I browse the internet on my phone. It's fine. And I'd be like, well, these apps are pretty cool. And they'd be like, well, what? Like the app that makes it look like you're drinking a beer? And I'm like, well, I'm not using that every day. But just the last point I have to make on this BlackBerry thing. I'm sorry. BlackBerry, which obviously is a dead company today. No one has a BlackBerry, right? Their sales continued to grow for 4 years after the iPhone was released, right? So 07, 08, 09, 10, 11, BlackBerry sales continue to increase, even though we all today look back, and even in the movie about BlackBerry, they pretended that the day the iPhone came out, it was like, RIP BlackBerry. Oh, sorry guys, you missed the future. And I'm just pointing out that in the real world, sales continue to grow for the next 4 years. And so I'm just saying that when you're in one of these sort of Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote chases the Roadrunner over the ledge moments where, you take a second before you look down and realize that gravity is pulling you there. I think similarly with AI, like we're all like, holy crap, we just went off the ledge. Like shit is about to get really dramatically different here.
Right.
And you can still stand there in the air for a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years before gravity really hits. Right. And I think to your initial question, like we are in that period where even if nothing changed, like we're already off the ledge, stuff is going to be dramatically different no matter what happens from here, which I know we all believe, the models are going to continue to get better. So the pace of acceleration is going to be even higher.
That's a perfect end note. Let's move the conversation to our predictions from 6 months ago, basically. We're not going to get too in the weeds. It was a fun discussion. James, do you want to take us through them, what the question was, where we each landed, and then we'll give a quick reaction and then go to the next one?
Sure, sounds good. Just to clarify also, back in November, we asked Claude and ChatGPT to generate these predictions for us, including providing probability estimates of how likely they were. And then so our job was to take the over or the under on each prediction. First one was OpenAI ships GPT-5 with a greater than 10 trillion parameter model. Max was the over, Eric under, and I took the over. Thoughts?
Where is it?
GPT-5.
It's not here yet. So far, I'm correct.
6 months.
I
think
was very much hung up on they wouldn't use the name, or maybe there was a high chance that they would abandon the name. It seems like they're going to do it. Honestly, right now, what the vibes are that they're going to kill the O series and just make 5 the overall.
I feel super good about the name and it shipping this year at this point. I think the only thing that could hit the under would be the 10 trillion parameters. Because didn't Brad Lightcap, the COO, literally say they were going to ship GPT-5 this year and it was going to be called GPT-5? Like, I'm pretty sure he said that like last week.
It seems like it,
So I would still smash the over. The 10 trillion parameter thing is I guess, the one.
Certainly I would buy the over now.
I might take the under because of that 10 trillion. Like
you're swerving now.
I'm sticking to my bet. Whatever. With the bet's locked in. I can't be wrong both ways.
I was trying to figure out, like, so Claude 4 Opus just launched and there's no comment on the parameters that I can find, but the best estimate I could get from Claude was 2 to 3 trillion. So I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the improvements seem to be post-training and chain of thought. And if they're going to merge, the O series with GPT-5, it's partially because they think they need part of the improvement off these reasoning models. And so maybe it's a sign that the parameters aren't getting as big as we thought. Next.
Also, it seems like adding that many parameters, creates huge issues with inference cost and just serving the model. But,
it's expensive.
Anyway, the next one was 3 or more countries enact national rules regarding AI medical diagnosis. Max, you took the under. Eric took the over and I took the over. We had it at a 70% probability.
You guys are crazy. You guys are crazy. There's no way. You think in the next 6 months, 3 countries are going to enact regulations on
happened so far,
medical diagnosis?
So here's what I had.
Oh, you found
some countries. ChatGPT is saying yes, EU AI Act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
UK's
I refuse to believe this possible.
Incoming. ChatGPT thinks we're like in good shape.
All right. Well, you took 70%, so never forget that I get 2 to 1.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to do the overall math at the end, but I'm sure there's
whatever.
a way.
Onward and upward.
All right. Tesla full self-driving approved for unsupervised driving in 1 or more U.S. state, 40% probability. Max had the over, Eric had the over, and I had the over. I think we're in good shape there.
Right?
Isn't Texas going to happen in June, supposedly? In 2 weeks?
Not yet correct, but it does seem like...
Right. ChatGPT says, not yet. Pilot cars on private roads in Texas. No public permit.
It's coming to Austin in June. Now, I think this gets into the letter of the prediction, though. Is it a state law or a city law?
That's true. Whatever.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a few months. AI will write the copy for greater than 50% of a major news outlet's articles. 30% chance. Max had the over. Eric had the over and I took the under. I just feel like my under is great here. I mean, nobody's claiming this. Nobody's
AI
doing
first newsroom. Everybody is like, what's a...
Eric's going to do this by the end of the year.
Just to get the point.
I'll build a new media company. I won't be major, though. I don't think I'll qualify.
I mean, you could be major by the end of the year. Why not?
Apparently, the Chicago Sun-Times inadvertently ran an AI-generated book list filled with errors, sparking backlash.
Clearly not paying for O3 there, I think.
I just think we're going to see so many of these things like hallucinations. Like, aren't we already seeing this from the Trump administration? Like, just random things that don't make any sense.
I certainly don't want, AI to replace the newsrooms.
I'm just expecting a lot of like stories over the next year about like academic papers and news articles just having obvious hallucinations, right? Because people are going to be using.
Right. But shouldn't we be more disturbed that the Trump administration is like, I feel like if Democrats were in charge and they were releasing government reports that were clearly written by AI,
Yeah.
It would be like the biggest cultural story of the moment. It's like, wow, the government's already phoning it in. With Trump, it's like, oh, at least they're using it.
That is literally what I was going to say. I was like, I would honestly prefer the AI to be doing this than the miscellaneous Trump administration employee, who knows nothing about anything. I just want Sam Altman to give every administration staffer free O3 so that they have O3 write reasonably intelligent fake reports instead of real ones.
I do think this core take that the internet split everybody's view. And this is part of why originally Mark Andreessen was so pro crypto and anti AI. I do think AI is going to bring us potentially closer together, where people are asking Grok, like, is this bullshit true or false? I mean, it's possible people build crazier models, but for now, while the models are sort of generally in agreement with each other about how the world works, it could be a major force for cultural consensus over the next couple decades.
It's basically the network TV of the internet, essentially.
Right.
Like we're all watching the three major channels and they all broadcast kind of like banal family-friendly content.
Right.
And your take is that Mark Andreessen doesn't want to bring us together.
He wants weird, crazy shit. Yeah, that's what crypto is all about. Like, do whatever you want. Like, and AI is a source of conformity. But then Andreessen Horowitz basically saw what was winning, and it was like, we need to go where the money is, and that's how I see the story playing out. I mean, they were resistant at first. Khosla led the OpenAI venture round. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, didn't Peter Thiel say like AI was communist or something?
AI was communist and crypto was libertarian or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, fully AI scripted and AI rendered feature film gets a theatrical release, 25% chance. Max with the under, Eric with the over, and James with the under.
This was Eric using his insider knowledge of pay-to-play tactics within the movie industry to try to grab us on this, that someone's going to pay a theater chain to take their movie even if it sucks, basically.
I think it makes sense. I mean, we still have time.
I had to double check this, that it wasn't hallucination, but according to ChatGPT, there is a fully AI generated movie releasing soon. Pirate Queen Zheng Yisao, billed as the world's first fully AI generated feature film.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to get a festival run.
I got to watch this. All right, moving on. More than 3 major smartphone OEMs ship phones with AI coprocessors running 7 billion parameter plus models on device.
7 billion is pretty high. The rumor mill on Apple is saying they're going to be able to run 3 to 4 billion. So even if you believe in James's claim that the chip they've had in there for 12 years is an AI chip, it still might not be able to do a 7 billion parameter model.
So we were specifying Apple, Samsung, Google, Xiaomi, dedicated AI coprocessors that run 7 billion parameter LLMs fully locally. We had the probability at 75%, 2 unders, Max and Eric, and I took the over, and I was counting the current technology as capable of running those types of models. But yeah, to your point, Max, I think 7 billion might be a bit high, right?
3 to 4 is what the rumor mill is saying for this year, but we'll know in a few more months, I guess.
Next.
Anthropic releases a model scoring over 90% on UBAR, the unified benchmark for AI reasoning, which does not exist according to our own research during the podcast recording last year. Complete hallucinated prediction from Claude. How are we feeling about that one, guys?
Great. We certainly
invent this
raises
metric.
red flags. Yeah.
Moving on to number 8, over 4 Fortune 500 firms, 5 or more, cut greater than 25% of their middle management roles by the end of this year, crediting AI explicitly with a 25% probability. Actually, interesting here, we have an over from Max, an over from Eric, and an under from myself. I am feeling pretty good about the under here.
Yeah.
We got to do the research on this. We're only asking for 5 firms to cut 25% of only middle management. So that's a low bar.
According to my research with ChatGPT, this has not materialized. Many large companies are experimenting with AI, and none have reported cutting a quarter of their managers.
Yeah, maybe we overestimated, first of all, how much we thought it would give them air cover for all sorts of things, but
yes, exactly.
maybe
For
they don't want to get
generally
dragged into the AI narrative.
If we got a tariff-induced recession, this actually might happen. So,
Okay, number 9, DeepMind and Google discover a new drug that clears phase 1 trials within 2025. We gave that a 20% probability, and Max took the under. Eric took the under, and I took the under. I think all looking pretty strong here.
And DeepMind spun out Isomorphic, which would be the startup, I think, that would potentially do this. So there's a chance that even if it happens, we can all claim technicality that it doesn't. But I think it's not looking likely right now.
Wouldn't they have to be in phase 1 trials already? Are they?
I think that they are planning to enter trials by the end of this year. So unlikely to have completed phase 1 trial. And lastly, we have the International AI Treaty with greater than or equal to 15 signatories, including 3 of the US, China, EU, and UK. 50% probability. We all took the under. Seems like a good bet so far.
Yeah, the AI believes too much in human institutions.
Right, because US, China both seem unlikely, right? Because Europe, getting EU, UK viable, getting the US, which under Trump is now like no AI regulation, and China, which is we do what we want.
The fact that the EU and UK get separate credit here is doing a lot of work, but 3 of the 4 seems high.
Do you know what the score is?
So just pulling together the scores, I asked ChatGPT to create a scoring system. It came out with a formula inspired by Breyer-style scoring, which I had never heard of, but
yeah, that's how close you are to the probability.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Seems like a good scoring system. It gives 3rd place to Max, dinged for betting against AI film, better calibrated on his conservative bets like hardware and policy. 2nd place, Eric, solid instincts, slight overconfidence on a few misses. And in 1st, myself, great balance of bold but accurate calls. Thank you, ChatGPT.
Love it.
I think this AI film take is complete bullshit. So I need a score adjusted for that.
This is just a check-in. No medals awarded yet, but I will take the pole position and see you guys in a few months where we can do the final tally.
All right. Let's do our fantasy draft. Max, do you want to talk us through the game and then we'll get into our picks?
Yes. We invented an ingenious game based on fantasy football that allowed us to draft teams of startups into imaginary rosters. We've done 2 different drafts. We did one about a year and a half ago and one about 6 months ago. We restricted the draft list, the draft board as it were, to companies that had raised over $100 million at the time. So if there's obvious omissions that come up in your mind, it's probably because they hadn't raised $100 million at that point.
Cursor hadn't raised enough.
Cursor being the most
and
obvious
then I think
omission.
there was some CoreWeave that we didn't include because of it's
we
too
also
hardware.
excluded specific chip-based companies, Chinese
I think
companies.
No robotics.
I don't know if robotics. I can't remember. Healthcare. Anything we thought we were even dumber than normal about, we left off the list. So we all drafted teams. We did a snake draft. Most notably, the first draft involved a discount that we had. One person had to take for getting the first pick because the first pick was very obvious. It was OpenAI. Eric paid, I believe, $75 billion in handicap to draft OpenAI
We had an auction
first.
And I feel really good about it.
It's aged pretty well since they're valued at $300 million right now.
300 billion.
What'd you say?
300 billion. I'm sorry.
billion, yeah.
I coughed. Yeah. It doesn't matter. And I will say, before we say our teams, I have not yet had the first pick in any draft. So I just want everyone to remember that when they hear our teams. Okay. I will go through my team first, which I will admit up front is in last place right now. All right, my team, Databricks, my star, worth $62 billion. Cohere, AI model company. Modular, AI language company. Scale AI. Sierra AI. Sakana AI, and Hebia. And if you know all of those names, you are far too online.
I'm bullish on Sierra. I think that's going to go
Scale
well.
Scale has room to run as well.
Oh, yeah. And obviously Databricks isn't going anywhere.
But Anthropic, surpassing Databricks has been a bit of a sob story for my team because James got Anthropic at crazy money, if I recall.
The fourth pick. That wasn't even your third pick because it's a snake draft. So it was me, then Max at Databricks, then James with, you'll say in a second, which doesn't make any sense, and then fourth with Anthropic.
I know, it's so embarrassing in retrospect.
Just to clarify, like, we drafted these teams originally in 2023, and then we did
1.5 years
we
ago,
drafted it. We had an ad drop waiver period last November, and this again is a mid-year check-in. No ads, no drops, but checking in on the teams. So Max, I have your score so far right now at 93 billion, mostly because some of your teams have not raised or exited since you drafted them.
I have no valuation on Sierra, and scale is at 25.
Right.
I'm somewhat optimistic on both of those. I managed to somehow pick the only foundation model company in the world that isn't wildly overvalued, Cohere. SSI, Thinking Machines, Anthropic, like just... You throw a dartboard at foundation models, you've got a $40 billion company,
listen,
but I managed to hit
Silicon Valley, the
one...
show, said this from the beginning. No revenue is so much better than revenue. Cohere is a real business, so people can value it.
Yes,
SSI and Thinking Machines are a dream. An napkin. They can be anything.
I have made a
I'm
huge
sure they
mistake.
have real revenue. I think SSI has real revenue. But anyway.
Yeah, Max, what's your learning from this so far?
I would say we already knew this, but the winners keep winning, right? Obviously, OpenAI swamps everything else that's happened in the entire draft. So we have a true power law, which is nothing else matters comparison to OpenAI, even with the handicap, which we knew was a risk when we came into it. Was happening, but regardless, it still happened. Secondly, I would say Databricks is, merely a $60 billion company, but that looks lame compared to, like XAI being valued 80, All right.
Let's not spoil them. James, you want to go next?
All right.
My team, with the first pick of my draft that you guys were making fun of just a moments ago, Hugging Face, no value because they have not raised since 2023. I drafted them because they had one of the highest valuations at the time of the draft. They were valued, I think, over $1 billion. I
thought they were valued at $4 billion at the time.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Anthropic giving me 61.5 billion of value. Replit hasn't raised since the original draft. I exited Adept at 1 billion. I snagged XAI with the first pick last November.
I'm so jealous of that.
Locked in 80 billion of value right there because they raised earlier this year. And Runway also raised $4 billion valuation. 11 Labs also raised at a $3.3 billion valuation. And Poolside, no raise recently. Also one of those foundation model companies that we have yet to really see appear on the draft board. But I am happy with my overall team and my score of close to $150 billion currently.
You know something I just thought about? You're extremely lucky that XAI purchased X and not the opposite way. Because if it had been X that purchased XAI, we'd be able to force you to disown whatever growth. But now you get to benefit from this combined monstrosity, which kudos to you.
I would just say, had I been able to draft first, I would be in James's position of being in second place with XAI. So I don't personally think that a coin flip should be dictating my performance right now. But it is
you. Fair
I know, woe is me. I will say, to give James credit here, I truly believe that Anthropic is the pick of the draft, or, so far. I think that just getting Anthropic at the fourth position in retrospect looks insane. And so I think that is the greatest. I don't even know if I call it a sleeper. It was sort of a semi-sleeper pick, but that clearly to me has had the most appreciation.
Eric, why don't you...
I'll go. All right. So I picked OpenAI with a $75 billion handicap. Now it's worth $300 billion. So I'm getting basically $225 billion for that. Inflection sold for $1.43 billion. Character sold to Google for $2.5 billion. Glean, we're scoring at $4.6 billion, but rumored to be raising at $7 billion. Mistral AI, worried about that one. $6 billion right now. Perplexity. Oh man, I'm getting no credit for that. That's going to be a good one. 0 right now, but it will be 14 is apparent according to the rumors. So we'll see. Safe superintelligence. I knew this was buzzy, but I don't even know if I could have seen this one. Raised at $32 billion already. It's worth more to me than Perplexity. Like, that's insane. Codium sold for $3 billion.
Do you want to explain that? It's they renamed to Windsurf for their main product.
Codium is Windsurf. Yeah, they sold to OpenAI. And then Harvey, no credit right now, but rumored to be raising at $5 billion. Total value $274.5 billion.
Just crushing us.
Yeah. I feel really good about this. I mean, hysterically, as I think I mentioned on the last episode, I wrote a bear case about OpenAI after this at 157 billion, I think, but whatever. So I'm getting it narratively both ways. But yeah, I mean, I'm proud of all my picks. I think even my sort of singles are selling, and I'm bullish on basically everything except I would like to hear what's going on with Mistral. But yeah, it's a power law business. It's crazy that like, I'm like, oh, Glean, that's a good company. I was totally right that would be a good company, but it doesn't really matter for my performance.
Yeah. I mean, I think you are consistently hitting singles and doubles, but you could have nothing on your team except OpenAI and be beating us by $100+ billion at this point. So it doesn't.
No. Which is why I made a bit that we could not randomly assign the first one, and I said we need to have an option for it.
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. You made the right decision 100%. It's just it is remarkable. It's like the whole game is just like OpenAI.
Who drafted OpenAI?
Who drafted OpenAI?
Go back and listen to that episode. Yeah, exactly.
We talked about it. I mean, I think they were raising at 90 at the time, and so you ended up with a $75 billion handicap on a $90 billion company, which seemed like a reasonable deal to us. But you know, we were all wrong, obviously, or at least we were wrong with this check-in.
These do have to last, right? It's like 5 years or something. We're like, how far?
5 years. Yeah. We had a good shot with Sam Altman getting fired of your team collapsing, but then he came back in force.
All right, what's come on the market that you think we'll be looking at the end of this year?
Thinking Machines, Cursor
for sure.
Manus.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking Machines, Cursor, and Manus are the ones that come to mind for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tight band because we're picking them up and we're only interested in ones that
they have to have raised $100 million.
All right, well, that's basically our episode. We're going to have two more before the Cerebral Valley AI Summit in London on June 25th. And then at some point, once we've gathered ourselves, gone to that wedding in France we mentioned, and relax a little, we'll come back to you and give you our thoughts from the event. I'm super excited about next week. No pressure, James, our game master over here, but we're trying to come up with some good concepts, but we'll be talking about voice and video, and certainly in light of VO3, Google's new video creation model. It's an exciting time in video. So see you next week. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Thank you.